Hello and welcome to the onboarding experience for Hyfi Kids. My name is Ashley Brewer and I'm a ministry success specialist here at Lifeway. I specialize in preschool and kids ministry. Today we are going to walk through a bit of the why behind Hyfi, just to help you understand why the content was created, but also why it's laid out the way that it is. And then we're going to take a quick look at Ministry Grid and all of the features that you're going to use there. So let's get started. I'm going to start by sharing this screen here. All right, so according to research, if trends continue, nearly 70% of kids will not identify as Christians by 2030, and that's not that far away. In our culture, the predominant worldview is now a post-Christian worldview. And this is a worldview that's driven by expressive individualism. So where many were used to seeking to find the meaning of life and being morally good, now their goal is just to define themselves. And as kids seek to discover their identity, they're reaching outside the church for answers. But this generation needs to know who God says they are. And Hi-Fi is a resource that's going to give the church, our kids, and our families the tools that we need to create an environment where this can happen for the next generation. Now, while Hi-Fi is a resource, we would love for you to approach it as a holistic ministry strategy. It's a new script that might alter some volunteers' view of how to best minister to and understand kids within our ministry. So don't see Hi-Fi just as what we're teaching, but rather the playbook for your kids' ministries, how and why. So there's a few things that we're going to walk through here quickly, just to help you understand, again, not just how to use Hi-Fi, but why it was created. So first is our philosophy. We want to help kids understand that their identity or who they are is defined by who God is, but not all kids are ready to show up and hear that. What you see here is a common type of kids ministry pathway. This approach assumes that a child comes ready and willing to listen and learn so that then they can believe. Now, this approach was successful when kids had a cultural understanding of the world that was compatible with Christian truths, but unfortunately, that's just not our culture today. This is the pathway that informs Hi-Fi. We see that it simply starts with acknowledging and celebrating that a child is here. They feel welcome and included, and that alone makes them want to come back. When kids feel welcome, they move to listening, where they feel connected and they want to connect to others, so they listen. And then as they listen, they grow in understanding who God is and what he's like. Finally, we get to the believing stage when a child has understood and is ready to believe in Jesus and start his or her faith journey. From believing, kids move to growing in their faith and becoming more like Jesus. And then as they grow, they begin to reach others, serve others, and tell others about Jesus. So any given weekend, we can have kids that are at every stage of this spiritual pathway. So it's important for us to provide an experience where each of these kids are getting met right where they are and where we're helping them move forward as well. When kids feel known by their peers and leaders, which happens in those first three parts of the spiritual pathway, they're open to hearing and responding to the gospel. And when they understand their identity is defined by God, which is what happens in the second part of the pathway, they want others to follow him and know him too, which brings their friends into that spiritual pathway as well. So how can we move kids along? We've got to have a strategy. And with Hi-Fi, that's what we like to call the outsider in methodology. So when children show up for the first time, or maybe the first time in a long time, they often feel like an outsider. They're afraid of being embarrassed or left out. They're looking for psychological safety and comfort. So when others can call them by name, make them feel welcome. As they experience being known and included, now they begin to celebrate with that. That inclusion leads them to a desire to participate. They feel like they're a part of the group, and therefore they want to do the things that the group does. And participation makes way into learning. When kids are emotionally comfortable, they want to listen and learn and engage in that way. And then as they listen and learn in this safe environment, they're open to contributing and questioning without a fear of being embarrassed or left out. Now, it's important to note that the steps of this methodology directly correlate to each step of the weekly session, which we'll talk about a little bit more in just a minute. Next is the philosophy behind Hi-Fi and how we can begin to shift our thinking when it comes to reaching those kids that walk through our doors. So Hi-Fi operates on these basic make no assumption statements. First, we're never going to assume a child has ever been to church. We're never assuming a child has ever read, much less believes in the Bible. We're never assuming that a child is comfortable in church or that they're ready to learn. And so the language and the structure of each session are shaped by this philosophy, which you'll also see when we get into the truths here in just a minute. So now that we've talked about the philosophy of Hi-Fi, let's look at that framework and those 12 truths. So Hi-Fi features a rolling scope and sequence that's centered around 12 simple truths. These truths foster a discovery about God's passion for us, our position before God, and God's purpose for us. So as we hone in on each simple truth, kids are going to develop a deeper understanding of who God is through understanding who they are to God. Now, while these are I am statements, they're actually God truths, and each truth has a verse that supports it. So, for example, with December, the truth is I am never alone. It sounds very self-involving, but the truth is I am never alone because God is with me. So we're just meeting kids on that level of self-awareness to teach them the truth about who God is and who God says they are. For preschool, we remove the I am part of the statement and replace it with God because preschoolers aren't quite on that same level of self-awareness as elementary kids. And so we're just seeking to lay the basic foundation of who God is. So again, with December, the truth is God is always with me. Again, the same truth, it's just not in the I am statement. So each week features a Bible story that teaches a different aspect of a truth taught through a main idea. So this is an example of one of the month at a glance for the kids ministry, and this was actually for March of 2024. So this is the example we're going to use as we walk through what this looks like. So with this truth, I am loved, kids will learn that they're loved because God's love never gives up. His love is for everyone. His love is powerful and his love gives hope. And kids will see this truth through stories like the lost son, the Good Samaritan, Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead, and Jesus entering Jerusalem. Now, here's a great example of how the language and structure are intentionally designed. We don't refer to it as the parable of the prodigal son because parable and prodigal are churchy words that someone who's brand new may not understand, and it may cause them to shut down right away. So just simply referring to it as the story of the lost son can really be a game changer in your teaching. Now, this framework also assumes that any week can be a child's first week. So featuring a truth for a whole month means that if a child is there for just 1 week or all 4 or 5, they're still being taught that same truth. And the stories and truths are not chronological, so a child's never going to feel left behind or left out. It's also important to note, you see there's 5 weeks on this particular month. The fifth Sunday of every month in our kids area is called Game Changer Sunday. This week, the fun and the hype is turned up. The session contains a really strong gospel focus. So this is a great session to hype up your kids and encourage them to invite their friends and bring them along. Now, preschool also has a fifth Sunday event for them. It's called Hooray Day. And again, we're just seeking to lay a foundational truth of Jesus as our Savior for preschoolers. So now let's talk about the different volunteer roles with Hi-Fi. You're going to have two main roles. The first is the host. This is the individual who facilitates the large group portion of the session. So they're going to set up and wrap up each of the videos following a script provided in the leader guide. This script can be read verbatim, memorized, or paraphrased, but it does contain some crucial call and response learning to help keep kids engaged. The videos and the script do all of the heavy lifting when it comes to preparing to teach the Bible story so that the host can really focus on keeping kids engaged and their energy levels up. So if you have a volunteer who is comfortable in front of a group of kids, then this is a great role for them. The second role is the team time leader. This leader is all about relationships. Their main goal is connecting with kids and helping them connect together through connection activities, discussion-based learning, and activity-based learning. So this leader will also guide kids through the crucial make the discovery portion of the session, where kids are going to question, contribute, and apply what they've learned through the Bible story. So if you have a leader who's willing to connect with kids and is more comfortable in side-by-side learning rather than presenting in front of a large group, then this is a great role for them. So now let's talk about the session flow. This is your normal session flow for Hyfi Kids. Preschool is very similar, but just slightly adjusted to meet their learning level. So we start with connect time. This portion is all about making kids feel welcomed and included in their group. Now, these activities don't relate to the Bible story or the lesson, but instead the goal of these activities is relationally focused. They're usually non-competitive, team-focused, and are easy for kids to jump into if they show up late. And every week we provide a younger kids, older kids, and a broadly graded option. Most churches are just going to use one. From there, all your small groups would transition into the large group time. And with Hyfi, the recommendation is to assign each group a color. And that's just because these color teams will be occasionally referenced during the countdown video and large group game. They also give your kids a sense of group participation and identity when they enter into that large group time. And those colors used are red, green, yellow, and blue. Next is the intro video. This is a fun video that connects the identity truth for the month, the main point of the session, and the theme. From there, the host would return to the front and lead an object lesson. Here, the host would bring up an everyday item as a relatable starting point for any kid. And we use this object lesson to introduce the Bible story and the story that'll be told in the next video. One of the things I love about the object lesson is it's usually something you've also already got laying around your house or maybe even your kids' area at church. I've seen things like a candle and a lighter or a dog collar and leash, stuff like that. So gone are the days of having to rush order 50 rubber ducks to use once and then put in a resource room to never be touched again. So that's also a really nice point with the object lesson. So then the Bible story video, again, does the heavy lifting of all of the teaching of the Bible story in an engaging and creative way. After the Bible story video, the host will wrap up the story and show how that story connects to the gospel. And here, every single week, we provide an opportunity to share about Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. At this point in the session, the hope is that kids are feeling included and are participating in learning. And now they can begin to respond as we learn the verse for the month and worship together. The theme verse can either be taught through a provided video or the host can teach the theme verse. You have options there. The video does provide motions in an interactive way to help teach kids and memorize that verse. For worship, we provide one theme song per month. Think of this song like a VBS song. It's going to have motions and will relate to the truth and the theme for the month. Now, we know that it's common for worship to take place at the beginning of the session, but we've intentionally slotted this at the end. Going back to the outsider-in methodology, worship can be considered more of an insider activity. It can be difficult for an outsider to participate, and it becomes easy for them to just disengage from the session early on. So by using the outsider-in methodology, the hope is that by shifting worship to the end of the large group time, kids will be more likely to participate. After worship, the host will dismiss kids back to their small groups or their color teams. And here's where your team time leaders will engage in that crucial make the discovery portion of your session. So during this time, they're going to be involved in the side-by-side learning and discussion-based learning. Kids are more likely to remember what they learn if they discuss it, not just hear it. And so these questions are designed for any kid to be able to answer so we can maximize participation. This is a great time to open God's word and learn together. Don't think of these as trivia questions. They're not right and wrong answers. It's just questions to get kids thinking about what they've learned. And then we finish the session with activity-based learning through games, crafts, and other activities. Every week, we provide a younger kids and older kids game and craft. Again, most churches, depending on time, will choose one or the other for the week. And then the theme verse activity reinforces memorization through active learning. And then the activity sheet is a great time filler towards the end for kids to complete as they're being picked up. And it's also a great resource for kids to take home each week to share with their families what they're learning. The session flow for preschool, again, is only slightly different. The connect time gives welcome station options for younger preschoolers to interact with. And these welcome stations are super simple activities like a coloring sheet, playing with Play-Doh or specific toys, stuff like that. Also, the large group time for preschool is specifically designed with their learning level in mind. So the tone of the videos is calmer, the style remains consistent from month to month. So that way preschoolers can get used to learning from the same bases and medium. After the fun countdown video, preschoolers jump into the music segment to gather their attention through participation. And preschoolers have their own Bible story video and theme verse video, and also have the option of finishing with another music segment. You'll also see here, instead of being called Make the Discovery, their discussion-based learning time is called Small Talks. But again, it's all about discussing the Bible story and how they can apply it. So now that we have gotten into all of the why and the setup of everything, let's take a look at Ministry Grid. All right, so when you first log on to Ministry Grid, this is what you're going to see on your dashboard. Couple key things to note with your toolbar up here at the top. This right-hand side over here, anyone that has a Ministry Grid account is going to have a dashboard and the More button over here. So think of this side as being your leader view. Over here on the left, these are your administrative privileges. So anytime you're wanting to access your curriculum from the back end, we're going to want to come in here on this side. Couple quick things to note. If you did need to give anyone else on your team administrative access to be able to edit leader guides or access the additional advanced planning resources, you'd simply click on your church name up here. And then under Manage Roles, you would then come into Admin and add their information here. But first, we're going to start with what it looks like when you are editing a leader guide from the administrative perspective. So the first thing we're going to do is click Curriculum right here. And that takes us to this page where all of the different subscriptions are. You're simply going to click on whichever one it is you're wanting to access. So we're going to click on Hyfi Kids. And the very first thing is this People tab. Here's where you'll come in to be able to add people to your church and your curriculum. And there's a couple easy ways to do that. The first is through this easy link, where it's quite literally a link that you would copy and paste into an email or a text message, something like that, that would give your leaders something to directly click on to then create their own Ministry Grid account that will link them into your church. Now, I will say this is our not necessarily preferred way for you to add people, but you will probably find that it truly is the easiest way. And that's because with this email option, while you do have the ability to type in an email address and send an email, it is going to come as an automated email directly from Ministry Grid. So it's very easy to get lost in a spam filter or junk folder. So if you do use this option and your people are saying, hey, I'm not getting that email or I've not found it, encourage them to look at their junk folder or try again using that easy link. First thing I'm going to show you is the schedule here. Now the schedule is where you see all of your individual lessons. So think of it this way. Your schedule shows you week by week which lesson you're doing. So that's where you're going to access things week by week. So all you'll do is come in here and click on the lesson that you want to edit. So once you click on the session you want to edit, you're going to see this pop-up window here. This will automatically prompt a leader guide called Leader Guide that you can go in here and either edit the name of or just click on it and start getting to work. You also have the ability to add additional leader guides if you wanted to create different ones for different teams or different groups. And then you also have the ability to copy one as you've already made it, or even remove a leader guide. We're just going to go ahead and click on Leader Guide so it'll open one for us to start working with. You're first going to see these timers over here. There's one on the right as well as one over here on the left. This tells you how long your lesson stands as you have it edited. So these numbers will change as you turn sections on and off. You'll see we provide 130 minutes of content, but remember, you're going to be removing things, and it's very easy to customize to be able to fit whatever you need for your programming. The first piece you're going to see here is the huddle, and this is a pre-service time for you to use with your leaders just to encourage each other and maybe review what you're going to be talking about in your session that day. And when we get into our advanced planning section, I'll show you where those huddle documents are, but that's going to be here at the top. So with this add note feature right here, you have the ability to quite literally add a note to any particular section that you would like. You just simply click on that button and you can enter a title and description. And once you click add note, it's going to pop up as a blue box right here with a note that you've added. Anytime you see a light bulb, these are leader tips for you. This is a feature on both kids and preschool. So sometimes it may be further instructions on what to do. It may be a true tip on how to do a game, or maybe even just some extra information that may be helpful for you. You'll also see over here on the left, this toolbar, these are all links. So if at any time you wanted to jump down to a particular portion of your session, you can click on that and it'll take you straight to it. Anytime you see a speaker with quotation marks, these are your scripts. So this is intended to be read verbatim, but of course you could always paraphrase it or memorize it if that's what you chose to do. Also over here on this toolbar, these little hamburger lines give you the ability to click and drag material into different order. I would tell you to use caution with that though, because remember the session was laid out in an intentional order using the outsider in methodology. So while you do have the ability to move things around, just know that if you do that, you may disrupt that. Again, do whatever works best for your programming, but just keep that in mind. So now let's pretend that we are making a leader guide for a younger kids group. So I want to come through here and make sure that I turn off the sections that I'm not going to use. So for our team time, we are going to use these connection questions. And I do love the apples, oranges, and bananas game for the younger kids. So I'm going to scroll and turn off the older kids game, as well as the broadly graded craft. Now, if you did decide that you wanted to do something different and you changed your mind, you can always turn these back on. They're not gone forever once you turn them off. You also have the ability to adjust the time that's allotted here. These are all suggestions. So if you are using this as a guide for your leaders for how long to spend on a particular activity, you'll want to make sure you adjust these because most of the time they're going to default to 5 minutes. So let's say I want to spend 10 minutes on this game. You'll see it's also affected over here on the left. Now we're going to scroll into our large group time, and I'm going to leave everything as it is, except when I get down here to the theme verse options. Remember, there's 2 different options here. You have the host led as well as the video led. Now, I'm going to make things easier on my leaders, and so we're just going to turn off the host led and rely on the video. And then we have our music option, and then the host closing here. And now we're back into team time. So again, I'm going to leave the younger kids option, but turn off the older kids. And now we're into our activity-based learning. So you'll see over here, we have 2 games, 2 crafts, a theme verse activity, and an activity page. More than likely, you're not going to have time for a game, a craft, an activity, and the activity page. So here's where you'll make some choices based on whatever you feel is best for your kids that week. I'm going to go ahead and for this conversation, just leave the younger kids game. So I'm going to turn off the older kids game. And we're going to leave on the younger kids craft, but turn off the older kids. And I am going to go ahead and leave this theme verse activity as well as the activity page, but that is strategic for this conversation so I can show you a couple things. And then now we've got our lesson ready to go. We see it's about 100 minutes as it stands with all of our time allotted as it is. One last couple things that I want to note for you over here. These media pieces on the editing page, You can download one at a time if you needed to for any reason. You also can click this download presentation media button to download all the pieces that you need. Now that I have this leader guide set up the way that I think I want it to be, I'm going to go ahead and view it as a group leader. And it's going to open that in a new tab. The benefit to this is as you're looking through the leader guide, if there's something you find you need to go back and change, you can just click back over to this tab, make your edits, come back to the leader tab, and just refresh here rather than having to click in and out several times. So the first thing I want to point out to you is that again, over here on the left, these are all links as well. So if they needed to jump to a different part of the session, they can. But you'll see here, there's our sticky note that we added. And so that'll show up here. There's 3 different ways to view the leader guide. The first is through all leaders. So you can see the whole session as it stands, large group and team time. You can also view large group only. So it'll start out by saying there's 10 minutes of team time, and then we transition to the large group where all the fun stuff happens. And then it'll show the same thing at the end, transition back to team time. You also have the ability to view the reverse of that, where you can just see the team time activities. And then when it comes time to go to large group, it'll say, hey, 60 minutes of large group activities, and then you transition back into team time. Couple key things to note about this leader guide view. First is this supplies folder. Don't miss this because this is crucial for a lot of your activities that you do. Not only does it show how many of each item you need per person or per group, but when you get to your activities that require any kind of printables, like some of the crafts do, or your activity page, it's going to be housed here. And so I'm going to download that really quick and show you what one looks like. So on one side, you'll have a coloring sheet that matches your theme for the month, as well as your weekly lesson. And then on the back, we'll have some kind of game or activities, as well as this take-home piece with the theme verse for the month. Again, like I said, you'll also have printables housed here if any of the crafts or activities call for them. Sometimes you'll even find examples of the crafts here that you can visually see on a PDF that just help you understand what it's supposed to look like at the end. Also, you have the ability to print a leader guide from here, but again, Hyfi was intended to be a completely digital resource, so this printing feature is a little wonky. So note that you can print it, but this is what that's going to look like if you choose to do that. The last thing to note is this download presentation media button over here. You remember this from when we were on the editing page. By clicking download presentation media, it's only going to download all of the pieces you have turned on, but it also downloads them in order, which is very nice. If you don't want to download all of your presentation media, you also have the ability to stream it from Ministry Grid. So when you come in here to this leader guide view, you would just click on the media piece and it'll make it full screen where you can just click through as you're going through your session. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is, again, just the leader view. So when you come in and you first log in on your dashboard, the first thing your leaders are going to see is the rolling banner for Hyfi Kids. This button right here that says customize lets them know that you've already made edits to the leader guide. So they'll just click on that link for the week that they want to view. When there's more than one leader guide to choose from, they will simply just click on the one that they want to look at. And then you'll see that it opens to that leader guide view that we just saw. So they can print it off from here, download their presentation media, or whatever it is they need to access. The last thing I'm going to show you is just another feature that you have as an administrator over here under your curriculum tab, and that's advanced planning. So under this folder, you're going to find the launch toolbox with some really good tools for you to use as you get ready to launch Hyfi at your church, as well as some family and volunteer events. And these are added to quarterly. So there's always new ones being added here as well. But you'll scroll down and be able to see all of these different resources for each individual month. So we're going to scroll and find August. And my recommendation is to go into the monthly toolbox assets and download the file map, just because this is going to give you a full view of everything you have access to for the whole month in one place. So you'll see all of the different resources that are available in each of those 4 folders, including those huddle documents, some graphics that you can use to make your own slides, some email templates, social media share squares, that month at a glance poster, and even some doc files if you wanted to be able to download a leader guide and make edits to it that way, or the Bible story scripts as well. And then it's also important to note that if you have the preschool subscription, you also have babies and toddlers material located under the optional session tools. And so this file map will directly correlate to all of these different folders. It's just a nice way to have it all at one glance so you know where each individual item is housed. That is pretty much all that I have for you guys in lieu of the Hyfi Kids onboarding. If you have any other questions about any of your resources or how to utilize anything, or if we can provide further clarity for anything, please email our team at customersuccess@lifeway.com, and we'll be happy to help you in any way that we can. Thanks for joining me today.